Over the years, interns and even seasoned therapists inside Brave have asked me the same question. Is it okay to cry in front of a client? And I'll be honest, I used to believe the answer was no. That's how I was trained, weren't you? Let me know right now in the comments if that's you, if you were taught that it was not okay to cry in session. And before I tell you about where I stand on this question now, let me first introduce myself if you don't know me. I'm Dr. Jenny Hughes, trauma psychologist and founder of the Brave Trauma Therapist Collective. And I help trauma therapists navigate the emotional weight of this work so they don't have to feel alone with it. And I do this work because I've been there. I know what it's like to sit in a session with tears welling up and wonder, does this make me unprofessional? Am I failing my client? Those are questions that I've asked myself, and they're at the heart of what we're talking about today. Now, maybe you've heard these messages too, right? Crying is weakness. Crying means you're unprofessional, or even if you can't handle it, maybe you don't belong in this field. That shit lands heavy. Those words make you second guess yourself, and they make you believe that if tears do come up, you've crossed some invisible line, never to return again. You know, I can still remember the very first time that I cried in session. I was a young therapist, trained to believe that my job was to be steady and neutral, to be the blank slate. At the time, I was working with a mom and her really young child, and the kid had been really super severely injured. And mom was just understandably so worried. She was feeling so desperate about everything. And I couldn't help but feel the same. It was a terrifying situation. And I was in training. So, as we're in session and the tears came, knowing the session was being recorded, I was instantly terrified of getting in trouble. My mind was gone. It left the session as all I could think about was how to avoid reviewing this clip in supervision, all while needing to ask my supervisor what to do with this really difficult case and this super important moment that I knew was happening in the room. And when my mind left, when I dissociated, let's call a thing, because I was so worried about those tears, that meant that I left and emotionally abandoned my client and her kid. And not intentionally, of course. And thank goodness our clients are so forgiving and honestly so resilient in the face of these little ruptures that happen all the time. But it felt really jarring to me to suddenly come to in the middle of her next sentence. And after the session, I had to prepare myself to tell my supervisor about what happened because I knew I was gonna show her this. I was gonna talk to her about this. And so I did queue up the moment in supervision to review it. Not as necessarily the opening scene for her, but more like a subtle, let's see if you catch it part of the clip. I had my clinical question ready, right? I presented her the case update, etc. And as we looked at the video together, just as I began to tear up on camera, I looked over at my supervisor, expecting to see a furrowed brow and clenched fists, tight jaw, only to see tears in her eyes too. She hit pause on the clip. We looked at each other and we both began to cry the tears that I had worked so hard to hold back in session. It's heavy, right? It's also so inspiring. And for me, it was the first time I had ever been given explicit permission to be human in my work. And to then be to share that experience with a mentor is everything. And it's because she was so human with me that I can carry even just a little bit of that forward in my own work as a supervisor, as a leader, and as a psychologist. Now, as probably will not be a surprise to regular viewers of this channel, that moment changed me. I was able to learn and feel and attune in my body that my tears were not proof of me being unprofessional. They were proof that I was present, right? It's only because I was so incredibly present and connected to this mom and kid that I was brought to tears. And so when I'm asked today by interns, by colleagues, by Brave members, if it's okay to cry in front of a client, my answer is yes. And not because a book told me so, but because I've lived it and I continue to live it. Because, of course, yeah, I still cry in sessions. And, I might even cry more now than I ever did earlier in my career because I've now had the luxury of having so many experiences that showed me that crying, that allowing my clients to see the ways that I am affected by their work deepens all of this, right? It deepens their process. It deepens my connection with these dear clients. And, obviously, I do want to say this, but just so you know, when I say cry in sessions, I'm not talking about bawling, right? But I am talking about those moments when my eyes well up with tears. And now I don't hide it. And yeah, there are times when those tears fall. It actually happened not too long ago with a client that I've been seeing for a number of years. And we got to celebrate something that happened between us in just the most raw and human and natural way. And the tears that were falling were tears of joy, of pride, of happiness. And I tried to kind of choke them back, but eventually I couldn't. And so I reached for a tissue and I dabbed my eyes. And it was such a beautiful moment with that person. Yeah, it was still a little scary, even in that moment with a client that I've known for so long. But what I've learned is that my tears, they don't turn the session into the Jenny show. They remind my client that I am right there with them, fully human, fully present. And every single time that it happens, I am further reassured that being human is the best thing I can offer as a trauma therapist. So, I want to invite you right now into some reflection, okay? Let yourself think of a time that you cried in session, specifically one where you felt ashamed of it, okay? As you bring up the image, the sensations, notice your brain and body. Perhaps there were thoughts of, shit, I should not have done that. Clearly, I'm not a good therapist. Ugh, I failed my client. Just hold that memory. Hold it gently with compassion, with care. And then I want you to zoom out, take a 10,000-foot view of that scenario. Look back in on that session, not through your eyes, not through that veil of anxiety, shame, and fear, but through your client's eyes. Okay? As you look through their eyes, what do you notice? Are they recoiling and pulling back from you? Or are they leaning in, getting even closer? Are they softening? Is your client, do they feel even more seen? Or maybe even more trust in you because you allowed your humanity into the room? Breathe into this and just notice what happens in your body as you now hold that possibility, as you look through your client's eyes. And as you check in on those sensations in your brain and body, I want you to hear me when I say this. Our tears do not disqualify us from this work. They don't mean we're unprofessional. They mean we're human. And it's in our humanity that the deepest trust and healing can grow. So, if you've been wrestling with this, I want to hear your story. Okay? Tell us in the comments or reach out to me directly. Was there a time that you cried in session and thought you had failed, just full on believed it? And then later realized that it actually brought you and your client even closer? Check in with yourself. If you're consenting, Put it in the comments because your story might be the exact reminder that another trauma therapist needs today. And this permission to be human together. That's why I created Brave, because none of us can carry this work alone, nor should we. We do not have to. And inside Brave, we tell the truth about what this work actually asks of us. We hold space for the parts that feel heavy. We celebrate the moments of vicarious resilience that remind us why we stay. So, if you're looking for a place where you don't have to explain why the tears come, where you can show up as a therapist and as a human, that's what Brave is for. Check out more in the description below and join us.